How many bars do you have left?
I have two bars. I started on 4.
Okay.
Which is kind of nutty.
Maybe we should have charged it last night.
Nah, 2 bars will get me. Two bars will get me downhill. I mean, once we get to the top, it's all downhill. So if it dies, it's all downhill.
Morning, everyone. Today we are here in Central Washington, and we're going to do a loop around this really interesting old mining town called Liberty. It had its heyday in the 1890s, and what remains is a historical town site of sorts that's been kind of refurbished. It's on the National Historic Register, and lots of interesting bits about the history here. Regardless, there's a cool little visitor area where you can park and some restrooms, and makes a good place to start this loop. This is actually going to be the second time we've ridden this route. It's just that good. We're already on a super quiet gravel road.
Well, we kind of stumbled on it yesterday because we were looking for some gravel that wasn't on fire, wasn't closed because of fire danger, and this just happens to be a really nice, I think it's about 15 miles loop, gets some good elevation gain, and it's one of those kind of hard to find rides where you get to the top and there's actually a view. The quality of the gravel was really nice, not rutted or anything.
And big thanks to the bike shop in Roslyn, Washington, who actually tipped us off this area. So thank you, Glenn. I know some of you have been asking what it's like to ride the e-gravel bike. So I think Laura will get into that a little bit later in the video. You've got a review planned soon.
Yes, but spoiler alert, it's pretty much just like riding gravel with a little bit of a boost.
But we'll get into the controls, what's different about the bike, all that good stuff. So let's get right. So in the previous video, I'd alluded to the fact that I swapped the chainring on the Bear Claw. I put a 36 tooth, and at first I thought that would be too low, but it's actually awesome for a ride like this, where there's a fair amount of climbing and bumpy descending. So I found myself not really pedaling the descents, but kind of hovering over the saddle anyway. So 36 tooth, turns out, if you do rides like this, it's pretty good. Another big reason we ended up out here is we'd actually scoped out rides in other areas, but a lot of the roads are closed because of fire.
The humidity of a sheet of paper is about 5%, and the humidity of the forest right now is about 3%. So it wouldn't take much for the whole forest to go up faster than you could light a sheet of paper.
So we've been trying to be respectful of all the kind of DNR and road closures, but it has made it challenging finding places to ride. So this lower part, pretty good, nice and shaded. Not too steep yet. Does get a little bit punchier at the top, but you have a fair amount of kind of 3 to 5% warm up. Just absolutely love routes like this where it's climby, but no traffic. You can really take your time, find your rhythm. Much preferred to a flat route with lots of traffic. All right, so we've ridden about 4 miles and have climbed 800 feet, have not seen a single car.
I'm okay with that. It's been lovely.
Last mile or so, it's gotten a little bit steeper, hovering around 7 to 9%, so that kind of warm up has passed. But one of the cool things about this route is the geology. Rocks. I wish I knew more about rocks.
Don't look at me, I don't know much about rocks. But what I do find really fascinating about this rock in particular is it's all like smooth and kind of swoopy, and it looks like it was carved out by water.
So while we're stopped, why don't you give people a tour of your command center there?
My command center. Yes, so this is the magical control panel. Normally it would be placed out here, but obviously there's a bag in the way, so we kind of finagled it so that it would stand upright. And it's pretty simple. There's a power button here. So you turn it on, and then it has a plus and a minus to increase and decrease the level of assist. So if you go up, you've got Eco, Tour, Sport, and Turbo, and then you go back down.
Have you ever used turbo?
I did for a hot second the first time I took this out, and it went so fast it was kind of scary. So not for me. I probably ride 80% of the time in eco, and then I use the tour mode for, you know, basically when I'm tired, going uphill, slogging into a headwind, those kinds of things. Sport, I've used a handful of times when it's like all of a sudden you just kind of have to go up a wall.
So like this, the climbing that we've done so far, you've been mostly in eco or tour?
Yeah, mostly. So far today, all in eco. Yesterday when we rode it, was in eco for probably the first half of the climb, and then tour for the latter half of the climb. When I do a more thorough review, like I'll talk a little bit more about how I've come to understand using of the e-assist, and how it's worked out for me. I think everybody's going to be different.
If you have specific questions about what it's like to ride this bike, you know, leave those in the comments and I'll have her address it. I will point out one goofy upgrade we did. I don't know if we've pointed this out before, but the tires. So we smashed in 2.3 inch tires on here just for a little bit more suspension. And if you look, there's like, I don't know, maybe 2 sheets of papers width.
It's okay because it's dust season, not mud season. Tires that it came with, while they were fine, they were pretty smooth and not the kind of tires that I like riding on gravel. So these ones have been fantastic for this kind of a little bit rockier kind of terrain.
Yeah, and the clearance issue is only in the rear. There's like a ton of clearance in the front here. Interestingly, I too have 2.3 inch tires, which I'm absolutely digging for this kind of riding. Doesn't feel sloggy on the uphill, and going downhill, you can just let it go. It goes over the chonky stuff. It might be a 26 inch convert after this trip. All right, let's get going to the top. Okay, we've switched to a lesser used road, and you can tell because it's more rutted and sandy.
Totally different riding experience over here.
Again, nice to have the 2.3. Definitely a lot more rugged, a lot steeper, kind of ruts to avoid.
So, I will be the first to say that riding an e-bike is not cheating. But I will tell you, when that hill there hit
15,
18%, I don't know, it was stupid and steep and painful, and I put it in sport mode, and I cruised uphill at very small percent of energy, while poor Russ was panting behind me. Feel kind of like cheating, but like the best kind of cheating, because I knew I'd get to the top without being dead. Sorry to leave you in the dust, Russ. Literally.
Thanks. So speaking of top, segue, we're at the top of something. I don't know if it's a top, but because there's always more top over there. This section, we didn't ride this yesterday. A punch in the gut.
I think if we had ridden it yesterday, we wouldn't have come back. Or you wouldn't have come back.
Well, I would have been more emotionally prepared, I think. Let's just say I was glad to have this 36 tooth on this bike. Yeah, so if you're wondering, we've gone 6 miles, but we've climbed 1,700 feet. So definitely a climbing ride.
And my battery level will attest to that.
How many bars do you have left?
I have 2 bars. I started on 4.
Okay.
Which is kind of nutty.
Maybe we should have charged it last night.
Nah, 2 bars will get me. 2 bars will get me downhill. I mean, once we get to the top, it's all downhill. So if it dies, it's all downhill.
You can tell who's the optimist, can't you? All right.
There's no point in worrying about it at the top of a mountain.
All right, let's get this over with. Okay, so after that gnarly kind of steep stuff, I think we're on a ridge. Ridge-like structure.
Ridge-like. The road definitely widened out and got smooth again.
Still a little climby, but nowhere nearly as steep as that last part. So it turns out, you can be on a ridge line, it can still climb. Just under 7 miles and have done 2,000 feet. That's pretty good.
I believe that there is a top somewhere, because when you look around, there's not much more that goes up in any direction.
Yeah.
So I know there's all these mountains behind mountains, but they haven't shown themselves yet.
I was about to pull that out. That's become my favorite new sayings. Behind mountains or more mountains. Well, eventually we'll be going down. Don't want to jinx us, but I think we are at the top. That looks like a downhill.
Sure looks like it. There's no wood handy to knock on, but if I were a betting man.
Knock on titanium. What's the bar situation there?
Well, I still have 2 bars,
Yeah.
so I need to get me downhill.
She's so optimistic.
One of us has to be.
So you how many did you go through on this ride? 2?
Yeah, I started on 4 bars. It was probably about halfway through that bar number 4. Blew totally through the 3rd bar using sport mode to get up that steep stuff. Now we're sitting at 2 bars. So
When I mapped this out yesterday, Laura reminded me that the profile looked like a teepee. So we climb and then descend. So as long as this is a top, we should be able to cruise downhill.
see, I told you, nothing to worry about.
So it looks like we are going to be safely descending back into the town side of Liberty. So when we rode this yesterday, we didn't have the extra shenanigans part. What do you think of the addition?
I liked it, to be honest. I don't think I was expecting that it would be quite so punchy uphill and rough and rocky, and that the road would look so different. But it was nice because it made the route different from what we rode yesterday. I also, once you get to the top, I felt like the views up there were incredible. I mean, the views are beautiful here, but to be able to see some actual snow-capped peaks in the distance in August, that's pretty awesome.
So how is this bike coming down the chunky stuff we just rode on?
So this bike is super stable, which makes it a great descender, with the little asterisk that it is also heavy, and so that means that it picks up speed really quickly. It also means that it hits bumps with a considerable amount of force. So going down steep, chunky, rocky stuff where you might hit something hard, I kind of feel like I need to meter my downhill.
You still have 2 bars.
And I still have to see, nothing to worry about.
Optimism wins this round.
Optimism, but also, I've put over 300 miles on this bike at this point, so I have a pretty good understanding of what it takes to run through a bar. By the time I was on to 2, I was back down in eco mode, and usually in eco mode, I'll get 10 to 20 miles off of a bar, depending on how much uphill there is, so... I was not worried. Science, math, numbers.
Anyways, so so look for Laura's full-on review of the Niner. What's the full name of this bike? It's the ERL.
It's the RLT 9.
RDO.
ERDO? I'm not entirely sure.
REO Speedwagon.
REO
So
Speedwagon.
that's a Niner REO Speedwagon.
We'll get the name right for the actual review. Suffice to say, it is a nice bike.
Hopefully you like this video. I will put the links to a shorter version of this ride without the super steep shenanigans, as well as the route that you guys saw today. Highly recommend it. I mean, if you're in this kind of central Washington area and want to ride that gives you a good sampling of the gravel here that you can do in a couple hours without taking a whole day to commit to, definitely fun.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Buy some stickers, some merch. That's how we keep the channel going. Or join us on Patreon, even better. And as always, keep the supple side down.